I'm Karen Bossick with Iron Sun Valley. I'm standing amidst this glorious field of fireweed. If you've been out hiking this summer at all, I'm sure you've seen scads of it. One person told me that the Indians use this as a calendar. When the flower reached the top, it meant summer was over. Well, we've got plenty of summer left, and we're going to have our good friend Lisa Horton of the Idaho Native Plant Society tell us some more about these wildflowers. Now, Lisa, I see this fireweed all over the place, just scads of them. I guess it's named fireweed because it erupts where fire has been, right?
That's right, Karen, exactly. Fireweed has a couple of great characteristics for helping it colonize after a fire. One, you can see these fruits starting to form here, these narrow little tubular things. When they dry and they split open, they have hundreds of seeds in each one. And you may have seen them in the fall because every little seed will have a little tuft of white hairs on it. And that helps the wind catch the hummingbird scared me catch the little seeds and distribute them. So lots and lots of seeds, that's a good thing for colonizing, right? But the other thing is fireweed has underground stems that we call rhizomes that connect plants into colonies. And if the fire doesn't burn too hot, then those rhizomes will still be down there after the fire and ready to spring forth new plants.
So it's kind of like aspen trees in that respect?
Yes, like aspen trees. They're good colonizers after fires also.
And the leaves are just so lovely and deep green.
So the fireweed, you don't just recognize it by those beautiful blue-green leaves, although early in the spring when it first starts to come up, it is absolutely easy to say, oh, that's fireweed there. It's a fairly tall plant, really graceful, really elegant, don't you think, with this form with the leaves and then all the flowers up at the top in this nice pyramid-shaped inflorescence. So one of the things about it, what we call field characteristics, right, are things like fireweed blooms from the bottom up. Fruit down here, buds up here. That may not seem very important, but that's one of the kinds of things that, just like in birding, that you have to start seeing. It's not just about looking, it's about seeing, right, when you learn to identify anything. So this is an important characteristic in the identification of fireweed. Some plants bloom from the top down. Look around your garden, you'll see what I'm talking about. We talked about the fact that it's a good colonizer after a fire, and I have been told that in London, after World War II, you know, there was such severe bombing in downtown London and the fires and everything, and the next spring, fireweed popped up. It had not been seen in London for generations. So imagine the joy in seeing such a beautiful flower coming up out of the ruins. It's really a testament to the regenerative property of plants.
Now, Lisa, I see that this magnificent flower is just covered with ants and bumblebees, and they must really like this thing.
I think it's really popular with the bees particularly. You know, they like anything yellow.
Now, why yellow?
It's just the color that they're drawn to. They may see things that we don't see. You know, bees see in ultraviolet. So they may see some things here that we don't, but certainly this is a very popular plant with the bees. So this is, you may not realize this is in the sunflower or aster family. You know, so many plants here blooming right now that are in this family, and in our gardens too. In the gardens, you know, the big sunflowers that we grow, daisies, asters, the perennial bachelor button, those are all in this family. And out here in the wild, of course, have you seen the ones starting to bloom along the roadsides, the little sunflowers, and so many others. And what they all have in common is that the family has certain characteristics. And I think it's really important to try to relate the wildflowers to the plants that are in our gardens and to what other members are in our everyday lives. You know, a lot of people look at this and they say goldenrod. So I got to stand up for butterbush because this is not goldenrod. And here's the difference. Goldenrod is also blooming right now. But the flowers are tiny. The flower heads are tiny. And instead of being in this nice loose inflorescence, they're clustered in, I call them plumes. Plumes like this with downturning tips, kind of like fireworks going off. What makes all the members of this family related to each other the same is that these beautiful little yellow flowers are not individual flowers, these little dime-shaped things. They are flower heads. They are composite flowers. So if you look at just one, you have, just like every other member of this family, this sunflower or aster family, in the center you have these little tubular flowers. Those are called the disc flowers. On the outside you have a ring of little tubular flowers. Each has one petal, and those are called the ray flowers. So this is a composite of many little flowers packed together, and that's why this used to be called the composite family, but now is called the sunflower or the aster family. So you notice that this plant is very leafy along the stem. And it can be, this guy is a little on the short side. This is about 2 feet tall. This can grow up to 6 feet tall. This is related to artichokes and sunflower seeds and lettuce. Did you know that lettuce was in the sunflower family? And I'll tell you another one. If you go to New Orleans and you have chicory coffee at the Café du Monde, it's in this family. So lots of plants in this family, huge family. It's the second largest family of plants in the world. Now you know the difference between butterbush and goldenrod. So you're good with that. You know, 2 new flowers. But here's a great story you can tell people. So if you're a witch, or you know a witch, most of us do, and you can't find your broomstick, you can collect some of this plant and keep it handy because we lose our broomsticks occasionally. And witches can transform this plant into a horse. So you can fly through the night on your errands of whatever it is that witches do on your horse. And that's why this has another common name, sort of a folk name, called fairy horse. Kind of a cool thing. Used medicinally, but also some of the members of this family can be quite dangerous to consume. Livestock, you have alkaloids, so livestock will really suffer from eating it. And I've read can also cause liver cancer and some other nasty things, so don't eat it.
Okay, I won't.
Stick to lettuce.
Now, Lisa, I know you're an artist. Have you ever used the paintbrush as an actual brush?
No, but you know, the first time I came out into the West, I was like 13 or so, and my mother was pointing out the paintbrush, and I saw there's a pale pink one, and there's a purpley pink one, there's bright red, there's lime green, and I kind of had the fantasy that you could just dip them in water and use them as paintbrushes. The interesting thing about the paintbrush is that most of this that we see, all this beautiful colored stuff, that's not the flower. I mean, think about a poinsettia, right? Those red things, those aren't flower petals, those are called bracts, which are modified leaves. And that's what all of this beautiful stuff is. So the flower is actually just this little green tube that's down in here. So that little green thing there, that's the flower. So in this family, all the family characteristic is that the flowers are tubular, so 5 petals, but very fused together at their base to form a tube, and then they release at the tip. So the other family characteristic is that they are bilaterally symmetrical. So if you think about a pie, you can cut a pie in any direction and both halves are pretty much the same. But in the case of bilateral symmetry, it's like your face. If you visually divide your face down the center, this half is pretty much like this half. But if you divide it here, this half is nothing like this half. So all the members of the snapdragon family have that bilateral symmetry. Think about a snapdragon, right? They have 5 petals, kind of like my hand here, and the bottom 2 are fused together to form that lip. And then the top 3 are fused together in various ways to make another lip. So in the paintbrush, we have all these pretty bracts and we have that little tiny skinny flower. You know, another member that's in our gardens that you're probably familiar with is the foxglove. And that's probably the only commercially significant member of this family, because digitalis was used by herbalists as a really strong cardiac stimulant.
So Lisa, how many different kinds of paintbrush are there?
In Idaho? In Idaho, I've read that there are about 15, but they interbreed a bit, so the identification of the specific species gets a little difficult. So I would say, just call them paintbrush. And you can impress people with this story instead. All the paintbrushes are what's called hemiparasitic. That means half, I guess, hemisphere, half parasitic. You can see they have green leaves, so they clearly photosynthesize. They can make their own food. But they require an association with a host plant, and often that is sagebrush. They make a little root, a little special side root that taps into the root of another plant. And when they need to, they can pump liquid and nutrients out of the other plant. So sometimes in a serious drought situation, you'll see everybody around looks pretty bad. But the paintbrush is looking really good. So that's a really good survival characteristic that paintbrush has. So just don't say what species it is, tell them that story instead.
I hope you enjoyed getting to know a few more of our colorful little friends that give us so much joy in the spring and summer. Thank you again to Lisa Hoyton as well. I'm Karen Bossick with Eye on Sun Valley. Until next time, I'm keeping my eye on Sun Valley for you.